most of our social infrastructure is rooted in economics, and it is the thread between how we eat, how we work, how we live, or where we choose to live, and I guess really every material and physical dimension of our lives interacts with economics. So it plays a very central role.
Economics, in its essence, just tries to describe how people interact with each other and how societies interact with each other. And I feel that that is like a central core that's crucial to understanding any relationship, whether it be on a micro level in households or on a macro level, like between countries.
Too many of our economic choices don't really reflect or honor the true value of things, like such as the environment or human life.
If anything brings you pleasure, it's going to probably have a price tag on it. Like that's my definition of what capitalism is right now.
Mass wealth inequality and billionaires are a huge threat to our survival. And this wealth dynamic, which is born out of capitalism, is like one of the biggest social issues of today.
I'm sure there are better ways to organize society than just having a few people calling the shots and not being able to make a lot of like change on a more equitable scale.
I think there's a few big answers to this question. I'd say, first of all, so many of the central issues of our time, like climate change, mass wealth inequality, racism, how the housing crisis, these are all rooted in economic systems. And also so many of our industrial, economic, and logistical infrastructure obviously is rooted in our economic systems. And this is the fabric of our social structure. And these issues are not just unique to, I guess, capitalist societies, but for any civilization or for any social organization, economics plays a central role. Shania, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to add on to that, I feel that economics, in its essence, just tries to describe how people interact with each other and how societies interact with each other. And I feel that that is like a central core that's crucial to understanding any relationship, whether it be on a micro level in households or on a macro level, like between countries. And so understanding those relationships and using the tools that economics gives us helps us use them towards like in a more interdisciplinary approach, it would allow us to use these tools towards focusing on actual actionable causes. I can start with this one. As a student, and this is just from a student perspective, I feel that they are really separated from me because economic theory I thought would give the tools for economic policy to be developed. Like it's economic policy is kind of like the science experiment where you actually try and make sure that what theory says is correct. But from whatever I've studied in classes, it's sort of a deviation from economic theory. Like every time I look at a real life policy, um, in your course, Julian, we did a lot of like actual policy making in 423, and it was interesting to see how much that actually deviates from theory. And so every time I know that it's a policy that's working in real life, it's like, oh, whoa, it deviates from all of this theory that I've studied in my foundational courses. Hence, it must be a good policy. Like that's the way that I look at it. So it's just really interesting to see how policy takes theory as a tool to work, but theory, at least the theory that I'm exposed to, has never like looked at policy, said, okay, this is what actually happens in the real world. Let's go back and change the way that we look at theory, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it does. And also, I would say that policymaking focuses more on data and economic data, and this is not really something that we interact with at all as students or in an academic setting, like the academic, in all of my classes. I may have taken like a very specific subset of economic classes, and this might not be the case across the board, but all of my classes have been very much, or like, yeah, through my exposure to like academic economics, it's all been very rooted in theory and equations, and I don't even actually know if the theory informs the decisions all that much in economic policy making. I guess, like I was saying before, most of our social infrastructure is rooted in economics, and it is the thread between, how we eat, how we work, how we live, or where we choose to live, and I guess really every material and physical dimension of our lives interacts with economics. So it plays a very central role in society. But the question, does it serve the common good? I'd say we would all be best off if these material decisions are chosen wisely. So it definitely can serve the common good. However, I think too many of our economic choices don't really reflect or honor the true value of things, like such as the environment or human life. And when these decisions are not really made well, or when the theory does not reflect that, like, it does not evaluate phenomena properly, then I think economics can actually be quite dangerous, or like can really lead us astray, since if a choice is given the go-ahead based on the result of an economic analysis and actually has serious consequences, they might not be accounted for. And there are just, I think there are too many externalities in the current state of like economic analysis.
Yeah, that was just a lot of my answer as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to repeat all of it, but just to add on to that, I feel like the ability of economics to serve a common good, like, is solely rooted in the context of how it's used. It's solely rooted in the interdisciplinary approaches it takes in order to serve a common good. Because just looking at economic theory on its own, like if we look at productivity or utility, it's pretty separated from how people actually value things and how people are actually valuing productivity, just as an example. And so if you look at the cultural context or the historical context of a particular economy, the policy, not the policy, sorry, just the tools that you use in economic theory in order to gain something would result in a better common good if that's the end goal. But if it's misplaced, or if you take a particular policy of one particular country and put it elsewhere, it's not going to solve the means that it was supposed to. And I think that's the same as it goes for the common good. You need to know how it would actually reach the end in order for it to reach the end, if that makes sense. When I look at economics, I feel like also being part of expanding economics, it makes me look at economics in two different ways, like economics that I'm studying in class and then economics that I discuss with my peers in expanding economics. And so the economics that I study in class looks at environment as an externality. It looks at inequality as an externality. And like, I think we've had a podcast about this as well, that we look at these as exogenous variables and not endogenous variables, like part of the model. And I feel like that results in the models that we are taught in class on how to solve pollution and how to decrease the social cost actually won't work because the environment is not considered as central to the model. And so all in all, I feel that, again, like, I think my answer is just repetitive, that it has the tools to explain environmental problems and actually solve them. Even when it comes to racial inequalities, I feel that theoretical economics does not explain racial inequalities at all. You need to, it actually explains the opposite of that. And being able to decode how utility is explained and derived decodes the racial inequality that's systemically like within economic theory. And so I feel that, yeah, actually that's it. That's the end of my answer. Yeah.
Also, Shania, for those of the viewers who don't know, could you say what expanding economics is?
Oh yeah, we are a group on, so Expanding Economics is a group on campus that focuses on talking about pluralism on and off campus, and we have a lot of we have events, podcasts, and basically we spread heterodox and pluralist economic thought on campus.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And
Yes.
that's a chapter. Is that a chapter of Rethinking Economics, or it's its own association?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay.
For my answer to question 4, I'd say short answer is no. I'd say it doesn't currently do a great job of addressing these issues that are kind of beyond calculation, or like that are not really don't have very obvious values in and like economic theory, I guess. And specifically thinking about pandemics as an example, I remember at the beginning of COVID, there was a frenzy under the Trump administration to return life to normal for the sake of saving the economy, even if it meant like mass death or that people would die in the process. And in that discussion, I thought, like, if human life is not relevant in the calculation of what is good for the economy, then there's something wrong, seriously wrong with like this economic calculation. And again, like Shania was saying, I think a lot of these issues are like by nature economic issues, and they ideally should be addressed in the economic discipline. And I think people are like in wider society, people are feeling kind of stuck actually, because there's just a lot of looming tensions and problems that we've been talking about, like, or like you mentioned, like climate change, pandemics, wealth inequality, racism, whatever. A lot of these issues have economics at the root, and I feel like because of the nature of economics to try to or like the goal being to process hard data and to kind of eliminate critical analysis, I guess. I don't know if that's really a fair assessment, but like there does, from my sense, there's a tendency to like avoid critical analysis and nuance and focus more on like numbers that can easily be processed. And then for that reason, a lot of these questions that have a lot more gray area kind of get lost, or just are not really like fully fleshed out in an economic analysis, I should say. Yeah, because economic decisions can be quite powerful and significant and have high stakes. If someone is giving incorrect advice, for example, it would be best for everyone to fix the problem from the source. And I think economists should definitely be expected to think critically and take their job seriously. And I guess, my short answer is yes.
Great.
My answer is yes as well, 100%. I feel that at the start when I saw the question, I was thinking that it depends on context, whether they are a professor, like teaching at a university, or whether they are making policy change um, on a more like legal level or on a governmental level. But at the end of the day, like what professors teach us as well has a huge impact on students. And at the end of the day, economics has huge impacts on policy making and on like the political level as well. And so 100% they should be accountable for the advice that they give. I guess economics does, I don't know if explain is the correct word, but it does influence how I view how capitalism was formed and developed, just because most of economics tries to have these very quantifiable, measurable values with everything that we're taught. And so capitalism in a way also is being able to find value in things that give us utility at the end of the day. And so I see how economics has definitely like resulted in capitalism being this one form where you need to tack on a value onto every single thing that brings you utility. And that's also my definition of capitalism, like a very informal, not very well explained definition, which is basically if anything brings you pleasure, it's going to probably have a price tag on it. Like that's my definition of what capitalism is right now.
I would say economics definitely gives valuable insight into the rationale of capitalism. But I think capitalism is best explained by history, or that, and also that economics sort of presents capitalism as a logical default. And it's also like capitalism is kind of the paradigm of economics, the discipline. So it doesn't give kind of an explanation from like an outsider view. It's more like economics, as I'm taught in school anyway, operates within the capitalist ideology, basically. And yeah, I guess capitalism capitalism is many things, because if we're thinking of it as an ideology or as a system, it's both an economic structure as well as an ideological paradigm, with the base assumption that people want to maximize profit for themselves and that economic activity is separate from the state. But I think if we're talking about what is capitalism today and how does it manifest in society, it becomes a lot more complicated than that, because there's many phenomena that have risen out of capitalism that are not necessarily the definition of capitalism. Like corporations are not necessarily upholding the definition of capitalism, but I think that they are like a unique product of capitalism and wouldn't have risen out of a different type of social organization. Or I'll leave it there. I would say no, absolutely not. I don't think it can survive in its current form. There's no reason to believe that our current system is superior to previous civilizational structures, given that like we were saying, there are so many confounding major social and existential issues that are at play right now in the world, and a lot of those issues can be credited to like capitalist decisions, like especially climate change is a result of our industrial choices. And I think we've made many mistakes as humans in like our industrial life. And I think if there's any hope for humanity to continue to exist, we must dramatically change our economic structures and our values, essentially. And I think capitalists and billionaires and mass wealth inequality, if you think of billionaires, that is not necessarily given in capitalism. Like, I think, again, that is a historic phenomenon, but it was a phenomenon that kind of rose out of capitalism. And yeah, I think mass wealth inequality and billionaires are a huge threat to our survival. And this wealth dynamic, which is born out of capitalism, is like one of the biggest social issues of today.
Yeah, I agree. And just to add on to that, my answer was mostly focused on wealth inequality because at the end of the day, it's very few people in the society calling the shots for a lot of more people. And so that definitely results in larger inequalities that aren't wealth related. Furthermore, global capitalism has resulted in so many problems that I wouldn't see becoming so big with other forms, just because with global capitalism, I feel you focus so much on the aspect of productivity. It sort of change the way that humans define themselves or define other people as well. And so it's sort of made us all believe that you are worth what you produce in some sort of way. And I don't see that working in the long run at all. Just based off of my previous answer, no, I don't feel that it would be the best one. And just going off something that I was gonna continue saying last time is that not only are few people in actual power to make decisions for most of the population, but also there's just, even if you look at it from the very theoretical economic perspective, there's a lot of risk involved in that happening. That one person, one investor who has so many stakes in so many different things, which is actually turning the world. If something were to happen, if they were to turn out to be the evil guy, we're putting a lot of trust into one individual here. And so that thought just honestly changes the way that we should look at redistribution of income and wealth inequalities. And yes, I do feel that there are a lot of different ways. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to define it because, especially in today's world, I wouldn't know what those structures would look like. But I'm sure there are better ways to organize society than just having a few people calling the shots and not being able to make a lot of change on a more equitable scale.
To tack on to what Shania was saying, yeah, no, it is not the best system, I'd say. I think we're due for change in the way we structure our economic system. And I think, I'm not sure exactly how it would manifest, but I think we could build economic systems where people are more personally implicated in the production of whatever it is that they're using or consuming or involved with. I think people are with most of our goods. I don't know. I'd say most of our goods or our physical objects are produced or controlled by corporations, and that has created a lot of, first of all, wealth inequality and climate issues, but beyond that, it's created a lot of disenchantment between ourselves and our physical world. And I think if we had more if people had more of a say in what it was that they were eating or where they were living or like or what they were doing with their time, then and were thus more like socially implicated, or like it was more of a collective project rather than like a top-down structure, then I think that would meet our needs quite well and also eliminate many of it wouldn't be easy, or it wouldn't be like utopic or anything, but it would resolve a lot of the, or maybe not resolve, but it would definitely mitigate a lot of the problems that we're seeing with the current capitalist system.
Do you think that a younger generation wants this change? Yeah, that they are feeling things are going wrong, we want to make something against it or whatever? Or it is like we older guys, let's say?
Yeah, I think young people definitely want things to be different and want change. It also could be that most of the young people I know are in like a university setting, and I don't know if that influences that take, but no, I'd say that's not the main thing. I think most young people want the world to be different, and I also think because we've been talking a lot about I guess climate change being a central economic issue over time. I think young people also feel the most implicated in climate change, since a lot of older people think, okay, by the time there's any real like existential threats to the human race, I'll be dead anyway. But like for young people, we are going to kind of be navigating that for the rest of our lifetime. And I guess disagree a little bit with the notion that no change is happening. Like it does feel very slow compared to the rate at which we're seeing at which the problems are. Like it feels like everything is snowballing and is out of control and very intense, and we're not responding quick enough. But I do think that there has been response, and people are creating movements, and a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas, but they do get lost in, I guess, the scale of the issues at hand, and it feels like any sort of response that we have is not really comparable to the scale of the problems, or it feels like almost insurmountable. So it's easy to think that, or to believe that like not enough is happening. But I'd say change is happening, and it's always the case that it happens on the margins of society, and then it takes over. And even though it feels like the inertia of capitalist systems is powerful, or like overly powerful, and that we don't really have control over that, I think we need to zoom out and remember that life looks very different now than it looked even 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And it is happening on a larger time scale. Yeah, change is happening quite fast. And for that reason, it is within our power to make it happen. And I was going to say, it's hard to imagine because we haven't known it in our own lifetime, but it is historically like relatively recent, and it has changed our social structures change all the time. You said empires rise and fall on cycles of several thousand years or 100 years, and these dynamics are very much at play. It's just hard to see it ourselves in our own world because it's easy to reflect retroactively, but the same cycles are happening right now.
Yeah, there's sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Just to add on to that, I guess the reason why it's also like invisible-ish change is because of the fact that we also need to do our own unlearning of the system that we've been born and brought up in, which is the whole thing to take on before trying to make impactful change in the society that we're in. Because what's basically being asked of us is to unlearn the society we were brought up in, and as well as try and imagine and figure a way to create solutions that the society has caused problems for, when we've never envisioned something like this. Like, the only way that we see other societies organized is like in books and movies and in theories that we study in class, and not outside of that, which is what makes it a slow change, in my opinion. But definitely, like, even then, it's pretty visible with the way that things are moving so quickly, especially over the past 3-4 years, I feel. And so, yes, I just wanted to add on to that.